What if the most powerful weapon you will ever hold is not in your hands, but on your tongue? Every word you speak is either building a bridge or burning one. Every sentence is quietly shaping how the world sees you and how it feels about you. But here's the question no one ever asks. Why do some people walk into a room and instantly command respect, while others, just as smart, remain unheard? Why do certain voices stay with us long after the conversation ends? Imagine knowing exactly what to say and when to say it. Imagine your words calming anger, igniting trust, opening doors that once felt locked forever. This is not about manipulation. This is about mastery. In The Secret to Winning Hearts with Words, you will uncover how language, when used with intention, can disarm resistance, awaken emotion, and quietly move people toward you. This book reveals what history's greatest leaders, negotiators, and storytellers always understood, but rarely explained. Because hearts are not conquered by force, they are invited by words chosen with precision. If you've ever wished your voice carried more weight, if you've ever felt the sting of being misunderstood, if you've ever wanted your words to matter, then this journey was written for you. Now, let's begin the audiobook. If you are ready, let me open the very first page of this journey. Chapter 1: Words That Rule the World. What if every word you've ever spoken has been quietly shaping your destiny? And what if the difference between being ignored and being admired lies in sentences you never learned to use? Long before money ruled nations, before armies drew borders, before technology connected continents, words ruled the world. A single sentence has started wars and ended them. A whisper has broken hearts. A speech has lifted broken souls to their feet. And yet, most people walk through life speaking on autopilot, unaware of the invisible power leaving their mouth every single day. Think about it. You can have the sharpest mind in the room, the strongest skills, the purest intentions, but if your words fail you, your world stays small. Because people don't respond to what you think, they respond to what you say and how you say it. From childhood, we are taught what to say, but almost never how to say it. We learn facts, formulas, and rules, but no one teaches us how to speak in a way that opens hearts instead of triggering defenses. So we interrupt. We explain too much. We speak to be right instead of to be understood. And without realizing it, we push people away. Every conversation becomes a silent battlefield. But here's the truth few ever discover. Words don't just communicate ideas, they carry emotion. They signal intention. They reveal power or insecurity within seconds. The people who win hearts don't speak more, they speak better. They choose words that feel safe. They pause when others rush. They listen in a way that makes the other person feel important, even powerful. And because of that, doors open for them. Opportunities find them. People trust them. Rooms grow quiet when they speak. Not because they demand attention, but because their words earn it. Let me tell you something uncomfortable. Most conversations fail before the second sentence. Why? Because the human brain is always asking one silent question: am I safe with this person? Your words answer that question instantly. A careless tone creates distance. A poorly chosen phrase sparks resistance. A rushed response shuts hearts down. But the right words, spoken with awareness, do the opposite. They lower guards. They invite honesty. They turn strangers into allies. This is why two people can say the same thing and get completely different reactions. One sounds controlling, the other sounds confident. One feels cold, the other feels warm. One is ignored, the other is remembered. The difference isn't intelligence, it's intentional language. And here's where everything changes. Winning hearts with words is not manipulation, it's not trickery, it's not pretending to be someone you're not, it's alignment. It's learning how to let your words reflect your best self, clearly, calmly, and convincingly. Because deep down, people don't resist ideas, they resist how those ideas make them feel. If your words make people feel small, they push back. If your words make people feel seen, they lean in. That's the secret most never learn. Think back to a moment when someone's words stayed with you for years. Maybe it was encouragement when you were doubting yourself. Maybe it was a harsh sentence that still echoes in your mind. Maybe it was a simple "I believe in you" that changed everything. Those words didn't just pass through your ears, they rewired your emotions. That's power, and you already possess it, whether you use it wisely or not. Right now, as you listen, your mind is forming judgments, your heart is responding to tone, your attention is being guided by rhythm and emotion. That's not accidental, that's how humans are wired. We are not persuaded by logic alone, we are persuaded by feeling understood. This is why arguments fail, why debates turn ugly, why good intentions still lead to broken relationships. People talk at each other instead of to each other. But imagine this. What if you could enter any conversation knowing how to calm tension instead of escalating it, express confidence without arrogance, disagree without creating enemies, speak in a way people actually want to hear? That ability is not reserved for leaders, politicians, or performers. It's a skill, and skills can be learned. Over the course of this audiobook, you will begin to hear language differently. You'll notice the weight of certain phrases. You'll feel the emotional impact of pauses, tone, and timing. You'll realize that silence can speak louder than words, and that the right sentence at the right moment can do more than hours of explanation. But before we go deeper, there's one crucial truth you must accept. Every time you speak, you are either building trust or eroding it. There's no neutral ground. Your words are always doing something, even when you think they're harmless. A joke can bond or bruise. Advice can empower or belittle. Honesty can heal or cut deep. And the scariest part? Most damage happens unintentionally. People don't mean to sound harsh. They don't mean to dismiss. They don't mean to push others away. They just never learned how words land on the human heart. This chapter is not about changing who you are, it's about revealing who you are without distortion. Because when your words align with clarity, empathy, and purpose, something powerful happens. People stop resisting you. They start trusting you. And trust is the doorway to every heart. In the next chapter, we will uncover something even deeper. Why the heart always listens before the mind does, and how understanding this single truth can completely transform the way people respond to you. But before we go deeper, let this settle in. Your words are not small. They are shaping your relationships right now. They are opening doors or quietly closing them. And once you become aware of this power, there's no going back. Chapter 2. Why Hearts Listen Before Minds. What if people never reject your ideas, only the way your words make them feel? And what if winning someone's heart is the only real shortcut to winning their mind? We like to believe we're logical creatures, that decisions are made through careful thinking, that facts persuade us, that reason rules our choices. But neuroscience, psychology, and thousands of years of human behavior tell a very different story. The heart listens first. The mind follows later. Every conversation you've ever had proves this, whether you noticed it or not. Think about the last argument you witnessed. Did logic end it, or did emotion fuel it? Think about the last time you trusted someone instantly. Did you analyze data, or did you feel safe? Before a single idea is evaluated, the emotional brain steps in like a gatekeeper. It scans tone, it reads body language, it senses intention, and then it whispers one silent verdict: accept or resist.
This all happens in milliseconds, long before logic gets a seat at the table. This is why two people can hear the same message and react in opposite ways. One feels respected, the other feels attacked. Same words, different emotional experience. Here's the uncomfortable truth most communicators miss. People don't argue with your logic, they react to your energy. If your words feel threatening, the heart shuts down. If your tone feels dismissive, defenses rise. If your delivery feels rushed or cold, trust evaporates. And once the heart closes, the mind stops listening. This is not weakness, it's biology. The human brain evolved for survival, not debate. When emotional safety is lost, the brain shifts into protection mode. Logic becomes irrelevant. Winning becomes impossible. That's why yelling never convinces, why lectures feel heavy, why "I told you so" ruins relationships, because the heart has already said no. The most persuasive people in the world understand this instinctively. They don't start with facts, they start with connection. They don't push ideas, they pull understanding. They make others feel heard before trying to be understood. And because of that, people lower their guard. Let me tell you something powerful. Every heart wants three things when listening to you: to feel safe, to feel respected, to feel valued. Miss even one and resistance begins. That resistance might look like silence, or sarcasm, or polite nodding with no real agreement, but it's there. Now imagine speaking in a way that satisfies all three without sounding fake or rehearsed. That's when influence becomes effortless. Because influence is not force, it's permission, and permission is granted emotionally. Think back to a teacher you loved, a mentor you admired, a leader you willingly followed. Chances are they didn't overwhelm you with information. They made you feel capable. They made you feel included. They made you feel seen. Their words carried warmth, even when they were firm. That warmth wasn't accidental. It came from understanding one simple rule. The heart is always asking, "Are you on my side?" If the answer feels like yes, the mind opens. If the answer feels like no, the mind resists, no matter how correct you are. This is why being right is often the fastest way to lose. People don't want to be corrected, they want to be understood. Correction without connection feels like attack, but correction wrapped in empathy feels like guidance. Same message, different result. Most communication problems are not word problems, they are emotional misalignments. We rush to explain before we acknowledge. We argue before we listen. We respond before we understand. And every time we do, the heart pulls away a little more. Here's something few people ever realize. Listening is not silent waiting. It is active emotional validation. When someone feels genuinely heard, their nervous system relaxes, their breathing changes, their posture softens. Only then does real dialogue begin. That's why the best communicators speak less and listen more, not because they lack confidence, but because they understand leverage. When the heart feels safe, the mind becomes curious. When the mind becomes curious, influence becomes possible. This is why sales scripts fail, why rehearsed lines feel hollow, why manipulation eventually collapses, because the heart can sense intention. It knows when words are used to connect and when they're used to control. And once control is sensed, trust dies. Winning hearts with words means aligning what you say with how the other person feels, not by guessing, but by observing tone, pace, emotion. A calm voice lowers tension. A pause signals respect. A simple acknowledgement can dissolve anger faster than any argument. Even saying, "I see why you feel that way," can shift an entire conversation. Not because you agree, but because you recognize the human in front of you. That recognition is oxygen to the heart. Without it, people suffocate emotionally and fight back. Here's a powerful shift to make starting today. Stop asking, "How do I convince them?" Start asking, how do I make them feel understood? That single change rewires your communication, because once someone feels understood, they become open, and openness is the doorway to influence. In the chapters ahead, you'll learn how to speak in ways that lower emotional walls, choose words that invite instead of provoke, use empathy without sounding weak, build trust before delivering truth. But for now, remember this: the heart is the gate, the mind is the room. Try to force your way in, and the door locks. Knock gently with understanding, and the door opens itself. And once you master this, your words won't just be heard, they'll be welcomed. In the next chapter, we will uncover something even more dangerous and powerful: the invisible weight every word carries, and how small changes in language can completely alter how people perceive you. Because sometimes it's not what you say that changes everything, it's a single word you didn't realize mattered.
Chapter 3. The Invisible Weight of Every Word. What if a single word, spoken without thought, could quietly erase trust you spent years building? And what if changing just a few words could instantly change how people see you, feel you, and follow you? Words are never neutral. Even when they sound casual, even when you mean no harm, even when you say, "I didn't mean it like that." Because words don't travel alone. They carry weight, invisible weight. Every word arrives wrapped in tone, timing, emotion, and intention. And the listener doesn't just hear it, they feel it. That feeling decides everything. You've felt this before. Someone says, "Relax," and instead of calming down, you tense up. Someone says, "We need to talk," and your stomach tightens before a single explanation follows. Same dictionary meanings, completely different emotional impact. This is the invisible weight at work. Most people focus on vocabulary, but influence lives deeper than that. It lives in how words land. Consider this: "I need you to do this," versus "Could we try this together?" Both request action. One triggers resistance, the other invites cooperation. Why? Because the first word, need, signals pressure. The second word, we, signals partnership. Tiny change, massive difference. This is why conversations often go wrong even when intentions are pure. You may want to help, but your words feel controlling. You may want honesty, but your words feel harsh. You may want clarity, but your words feel dismissive. And once a word lands with the wrong weight, the damage is already done. Here's something most people don't realize until it's too late. The listener decides the meaning, not the speaker. You don't get to choose how your words are received. You only get to choose how carefully they're delivered. That's responsibility and power. Because when you understand weight, you begin to speak differently. You slow down. You choose softer entries into hard truths. You replace sharp edges with clarity and respect. Not to weaken your message, but to strengthen its impact. Let's talk about tone. Tone is the emotional color of your words. You can say the same sentence with curiosity or with contempt, and the heart knows the difference instantly. And raised eyebrow, a rushed pace, a flat voice, these details are louder than the words themselves. This is why text messages cause so much misunderstanding. Tone disappears, but weight remains. So the mind fills in the blanks, usually with fear. Now think about timing. Even the right words spoken at the wrong time become wrong words. Advice given too early feels intrusive. Truth delivered too late feels dishonest. Timing is empathy in action. It says, "I see where you are." And then there's intention. This is the heaviest layer of all. People can sense why you're speaking. Are you trying to connect or to win? To help or to prove a point? To understand or to dominate?
You can hide words, you can't hide intention. That's why flattery feels fake, why manipulation eventually fails, why scripted lines sound hollow. The heart always detects motive. So when people pull away from your words, it's rarely because they disagree. It's because something about the weight feels off, too heavy, too sharp, too cold. This is where powerful communicators separate themselves. They don't remove weight, they balance it. They know when to be firm and when to be gentle. They know when silence speaks louder than explanation. They know when one word can replace 10. Here's a simple shift that changes everything. Replace absolutes with openness. Words like always, never, everyone, no one, they crush dialogue. They feel final, accusatory, unfair. Instead, use language that leaves room. It seems like, from what I'm seeing, help me understand. These phrases don't weaken your position, they invite conversation. And conversation is where hearts stay open. Another invisible weight lives in labels. When you label someone, you trap them. You're lazy, you're difficult, you're emotional. Labels don't describe behavior, they attack identity. And identity is sacred. Once attacked, people defend, not listen. Powerful communicators criticize actions, not character. They say, this behavior isn't working, instead of, you're the problem. One preserves dignity, the other destroys trust. Now let's talk about silence. Silence is a wordless sentence. Used well, it signals confidence. Used poorly, it signals distance. Pausing before responding shows thoughtfulness. Interrupting signals insecurity. The person who controls silence often controls the conversation, because silence gives your words space to breathe and wait to settle. Have you ever noticed how confident speakers aren't rushed? They let words land. They allow impact. They don't chase approval. That calm transfers to the listener, and calm creates trust. Here's the core lesson of this chapter. Your words are not just information, they are emotional signals, and every signal either pulls people closer or pushes them away. There is no middle. This doesn't mean you must walk on eggshells. It means you speak with awareness. Awareness of how words feel. Awareness of emotional timing. Awareness of the human heart on the other side. When you master this, something shifts. People stop misinterpreting you. Your message lands cleaner. Conflict softens before it hardens. And, perhaps most importantly, you stop saying, "That's not what I meant," because what you mean finally matches what they feel. In the next chapter, we go even deeper. We'll uncover how to speak in a way that makes people feel something, not just hear something. How to craft language that resonates emotionally, without drama, without manipulation, without force. Because when words are felt, they are remembered. And once your words are remembered, your influence has already begun.
Chapter 4. Speaking to be felt, not just heard. What if people forget most of what you say, but never forget how your words make them feel? And what if the true power of speech begins only when emotion enters the room? Being heard is easy. Being felt is rare. Most people talk. Some people explain. Very few people connect. And connection, real connection, doesn't happen at the level of information. It happens at the level of emotion. You can deliver perfect logic and still lose the room. You can speak the truth and still leave people cold. Because truth without emotion feels empty, and emotion without awareness feels overwhelming. To speak so your words are felt, you must learn to speak to the human experience, not just the human mind. Think about the last time a conversation moved you. It probably wasn't because of facts. It was because someone named a feeling you couldn't put into words, or mirrored a struggle you thought was invisible, or said something that made you feel less alone. That moment didn't just pass through you,
It stayed. That's the difference between words that land and words that linger. The secret is simple but not easy. People feel first, they understand later. So if your words never touch feeling, they rarely reach understanding. This is why instructions are forgotten, but stories are remembered. Why lectures fade, but moments stay vivid. Emotion is memory's anchor. When emotion is present, attention sharpens. When attention sharpens, meaning forms. So how do you speak to be felt? You begin by slowing down. Speed is the enemy of emotion. Rushed speech signals anxiety. It overwhelms the listener. It leaves no room for feeling to surface. When you slow your pace, you signal confidence. You give space for words to breathe. You allow emotion to arrive. A pause before a key sentence tells the listener, this matters. Now consider language that names feelings. Most people talk around emotions instead of through them. They say, it's been hard lately. I'm frustrated. Things aren't working. But powerful speakers get specific. They say, it feels like you're trying your best and no one sees it. It sounds exhausting to carry this alone. I can hear how disappointed you are. Specific emotion creates recognition, and recognition creates trust. Because when someone hears their inner world reflected accurately, something deep happens. They feel known. And when people feel known, they listen. This is not about therapy language. It's about emotional accuracy, naming what's already there, but unspoken. Another key is vulnerability. Not oversharing, not emotional dumping, but appropriate openness. When you speak as if you're untouchable, people disconnect. When you speak as if you're human, people lean in. Saying, I don't have all the answers. I've struggled with this too. I might be wrong, but here's how I see it. These phrases don't weaken your authority. They humanize it. And humans trust humans, not perfection. This is why the most magnetic speakers don't sound rehearsed. They sound real. They don't hide emotion. They channel it. Now let's talk about imagery. Facts tell. Images show. When you say, this was a difficult time, the mind nods politely. When you say, I remember staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. wondering how everything fell apart, the heart wakes up. Images create shared experience. They allow the listener to step into your words instead of standing outside them. And when people can see what you're saying, they can feel it too. But imagery must serve truth, not drama. Emotion should be invited, not forced. Overstatement feels fake. Understatement feels distant. Balance is power. Now here's a mistake many well-meaning people make. They rush to solutions. Someone shares pain, and immediately advice arrives. But advice before emotional validation feels dismissive. It says your feelings are a problem to fix. Instead, speak presence first. I can hear how heavy this is. That sounds incredibly frustrating. I'm really glad you told me. These words don't solve the issue. They create space. And in that space, trust grows. Only after trust is built do solutions land. This is why some people can say hard things and still be loved. They build emotional safety before delivering truth. Speaking to be felt means understanding emotional timing. Truth spoken too early feels sharp. Truth spoken at the right moment feels supportive. Same words, different impact. Now let's address something crucial. Emotion does not mean softness. You can be firm and still be felt. You can say no with compassion. You can disagree with respect. You can correct without humiliation. Emotion is not about being nice. It's about being aware. Aware of the emotional temperature of the room. Aware of how your words land. Aware of what the other person needs in that moment. Sometimes they need clarity. Sometimes they need reassurance. Sometimes they just need to be heard. The best communicators adjust, not because they're weak, but because they're precise. Precision is power. Here's a powerful test to remember. After you speak, ask yourself, not aloud, but internally, how did that make them feel? Not was I clear, not was I right, but how did that land emotionally? Because emotional impact determines relational outcome. This is why apologies that explain too much fail, why compliments that feel generic fall flat, why encouragement that ignores struggle feels hollow. Emotion must be acknowledged before it can be transformed.
When you speak to be felt, you stop trying to impress, you start trying to connect, and connection changes everything. People forgive more easily, they collaborate more openly, they trust more deeply, because they feel seen, not managed. In the next chapter, we will step into something even more delicate: how to persuade without pressure, how to influence others in a way that feels natural, ethical, and effortless. Because when people feel something through your words, they don't feel pushed, they feel pulled. And that pull is where real influence lives.
Chapter 5. The Language of Empathy. Speaking to hearts, not just minds. Have you ever spoken to someone and felt completely invisible, as if your words bounced off an impenetrable wall? What if a simple shift in how you speak could make every person feel truly seen, understood, and valued? Empathy is the hidden currency of connection. Words without empathy may inform, but they rarely inspire. When you speak with empathy, you are not just sharing ideas, you are touching hearts, bridging divides, and creating bonds that last. This chapter dives into the subtle art of empathic communication, where your words become more than sound, they become a living connection. Understanding empathy in communication. Empathy is the ability to sense and reflect the feelings of others. It's not sympathy or pity. It's a deep understanding that someone's experience matters. In language, empathy transforms ordinary sentences into mirrors of the listener's emotions. Consider the difference. You should handle this differently. I can see how that situation must have felt overwhelming. Here's an approach that might help. The first instructs. The second connects. Words infused with empathy carry a magnetic force. They invite trust and openness, allowing hearts to respond without resistance. Neuroscience confirms this. When someone feels understood, their brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, creating instant rapport. Listening as the gateway to empathy. Before you can speak empathically, you must truly listen. Listening is not just hearing words, it's absorbing tone, observing body language, and sensing unspoken emotions. Active listening involves full presence. Silence your inner monologue. Focus entirely on the speaker. Reflective responses. Mirror their emotions. Phrases like, "It sounds like that was really challenging," validate feelings without judgment. Curiosity over assumptions. Ask open-ended questions that invite deeper sharing. The more attuned you are, the more your words will resonate. Empathy begins long before you speak. It starts in the quiet space where attention meets understanding. Choosing words that reflect understanding. Once you understand another person's emotional state, your words can carry resonance. Certain techniques amplify the effect. Use emotional labels. Name the feeling you sense. It seems like you felt frustrated when that happened. Speak in their perspective. Frame sentences from their point of view. From your experience, I can see why this feels unfair. Avoid dismissive language. Phrases like, "It's not a big deal," or "You're overreacting," break connection instantly. Empathic language is subtle but powerful. A single well-chosen sentence can open hearts, while careless words can close doors forever. The empathy storytelling formula. Stories are the vessels of empathy. They allow listeners to step into your shoes or you into theirs. To craft empathic stories, start with emotion, not facts. I remember feeling completely lost after that failure. Connect to shared experience. Use situations that mirror common human struggles. Offer insight or comfort. Conclude with understanding, guidance, or hope. The listener experiences the story emotionally, not just intellectually, and your words become a bridge between minds and hearts. Empathy in conflict. Winning hearts isn't just about harmony, it's also about navigating tension. Empathic words defuse conflict by acknowledging emotions without conceding principles. Example, "I hear that you're frustrated, and I want to work together to find a solution." Instead of escalating, this approach validates feelings, reduces defensiveness, and opens pathways for cooperation. The most influential communicators wield empathy as both shield and sword, turning potential clashes into opportunities for connection. Subtle cues that enhance empathic communication. Empathy is not only verbal, it's also conveyed through subtle cues. Tone of voice, calm, warm, and steady tones convey understanding. Pacing and pauses give the listener time to process and feel. Mirroring, gentle alignment with posture or gestures builds subconscious rapport. These nonverbal signals amplify your words, creating a holistic communication experience that feels natural and heartfelt. Exercises to cultivate empathy in words. To make empathy a habit in your communication, daily reflection. Recall conversations and note where empathy was missing. Role reversal practice. Imagine yourself in the other person's shoes before responding. Emotion journaling. Identify emotions in everyday interactions and practice labeling them in sentences. Empathy audits. Ask trusted friends how your words make them feel. Adjust accordingly. Through consistent practice, empathic language becomes intuitive, an invisible force that draws people to you effortlessly. The transformative power of empathic words. Empathic communication creates trust and intimacy. When people feel truly understood, barriers dissolve. Your words carry a subtle magic, transforming ordinary interactions into meaningful connections. Empathy is the secret ingredient that turns conversation into influence, and influence into admiration and loyalty. Imagine walking into a room and speaking a single sentence that makes everyone feel acknowledged, valued, and inspired. That is the potential of empathy-infused words. And yet, many overlook this power, scattering their energy on commands, facts, or persuasion alone. Mastering empathy doesn't just make you a better communicator, it makes you unforgettable. Hearts remember those who listen, validate, and connect. Words are not just tools, they are conduits of human connection. By learning to infuse empathy into every sentence, you step into a world where communication is no longer transactional, but transformational.
Chapter 6. The Magnetism of Persuasion. Making Words Irresistible. Why do some words linger in your mind long after they are spoken, while others vanish without a trace? What separates a sentence that inspires action from one that's quickly forgotten? Persuasion is not about manipulation. It's about crafting messages that resonate, inspire, and draw people toward your vision. It is the magnetic force that turns ordinary speech into a tool of influence, leaving listeners unable to resist paying attention, feeling connected, and taking action. In this chapter, we uncover the secrets behind persuasive, heart-winning words. Understanding the psychology of influence. Persuasion begins with understanding human psychology. People respond to emotion first, logic second. Even the most rational decisions are guided by feelings, the fear of missing out, the desire for connection, the longing for recognition. To make your words irresistible, you must tap into these underlying drives. This requires careful observation, noticing what motivates people, identifying their unspoken needs, and speaking to their aspirations, fears, or dreams. Dr. Robert Cialdini, a pioneer in influence research, identified key principles: reciprocity, scarcity, authority, consistency, liking, and social proof. Each of these can be embedded in your language to make your words compelling, but when used with empathy and integrity, they become tools that win hearts, not just compliance. Crafting persuasive language. Persuasive words share certain qualities: clarity, emotion, and rhythm. A persuasive sentence is simple enough to understand instantly, evocative enough to spark feeling, and rhythmic enough to be memorable. For example, weak, You should join this program because it's good. Persuasive. Imagine transforming your life in just 30 days, feeling more confident, energized, and unstoppable than ever before. Notice the difference? The second sentence paints a vivid picture, speaks directly to desire, and creates an emotional pull. It doesn't just inform, it invites action. Storytelling as a persuasive tool. Storytelling magnifies persuasion. Stories bypass skepticism by immersing the listener in an emotional experience. They allow you to illustrate concepts, evoke empathy, and create a sense of shared journey. When crafting persuasive stories, introduce relatable characters. People see themselves in others' experiences. Create a conflict or challenge. This builds tension and engagement. Deliver transformation or resolution. Show the benefits, solutions, or insights clearly. Include a subtle call to action. Inspire the listener to act without overt pressure. A well-told story can change opinions, spark motivation, and cement trust, all without ever sounding manipulative. The power of questions. Questions are one of the most persuasive tools in language. They engage the listener, provoke thought, and subtly guide attention. Types of persuasive questions include rhetorical questions. What would your life feel like if every word you spoke left a mark? Reflective questions. Have you ever noticed how people lean in when someone truly understands them? Future-oriented questions. Imagine the opportunities that could open if you mastered the art of winning hearts with words. Questions shift the listener from passive reception to active contemplation, making your words unforgettable. Creating urgency without pressure. Persuasive communication often requires urgency, but it must feel natural, not forceful. Words that convey urgency tap into desire and fear of loss, but in a respectful, empowering way. Example: opportunities like this don't wait, they pass by silently, unnoticed. The moment to act is now. Notice the subtle tension? Listeners are nudged toward action because the message frames delay as costly without feeling manipulative. This balance is what separates heart-winning persuasion from pushy sales tactics. Tone, pace, and delivery. Even the most perfectly crafted words lose power if delivered poorly. Persuasive language relies on tone, rhythm, and pacing. Tone, warm, confident, and passionate tones invite trust. Pacing, strategic pauses allow ideas to sink in. Emphasis, highlight key words to create emotional resonance. Delivery transforms ordinary sentences into memorable experiences. Words are not just read, they are performed, felt, and remembered. Ethical persuasion. True mastery of persuasive language requires integrity. Influence without empathy or honesty can alienate people and damage trust. Winning hearts means aligning your words with genuine intent. When persuasion is rooted in understanding and care, it builds long-term relationships. It inspires loyalty and admiration. It makes people feel empowered, not coerced. The ethical communicator never uses persuasion as a weapon. They use it as a bridge, a means to connect, inspire, and uplift. Exercises to sharpen persuasive skills. Identify emotional drivers. Observe conversations and notice which words spark excitement, curiosity, or inspiration. Rewrite weak sentences. Take everyday statements and transform them into vivid, emotionally charged versions. Practice storytelling. Share a personal story with a clear challenge and resolution. Observe the listener's reaction. Use questions strategically. Experiment with rhetorical and reflective questions in daily interactions. These exercises condition your mind to see language as a tool of influence and connection, rather than just a medium for information. Persuasion is the alchemy of language. When words are chosen carefully, Delivered with authenticity and infused with empathy, they become irresistible. They move people, spark action, and leave lasting impressions. Mastering persuasive communication doesn't happen overnight. It is cultivated through observation, practice, and reflection. But once mastered, it unlocks a world where your words are not just heard, they are felt, remembered, and acted upon. And as we move forward, the next chapter will reveal how combining persuasion with emotional storytelling and subtle influence can make your words almost magical, leaving a trail of admiration and trust in every room you enter.
Chapter 7. The Art of Storytelling, Making Every Word a Journey. Why do some stories stay with you for a lifetime, while others fade within moments? What makes certain words so compelling that they transport you, heart and mind, to another world? Storytelling is the secret weapon of those who win hearts effortlessly. It transforms words from mere information into experiences, memories, and emotions. In this chapter, we explore how to craft stories that captivate, connect, and resonate deeply with every listener. The science of storytelling. Human brains are wired for stories. Neuroscience shows that when we hear a story, our brains release oxytocin, the chemical associated with empathy and bonding. We imagine ourselves in the narrative, feel the character's emotions, and remember the events more vividly than a list of facts. Stories bypass resistance. They're softer than arguments, gentler than instructions, yet infinitely more powerful. When crafted well, a story can inspire action, change perspectives, and leave lasting impressions, all without seeming forceful. The structure of a heart-winning story. Great stories share a common framework, whether whispered around a campfire or told in a boardroom. Hook. Capture attention immediately, a startling fact, an emotional moment, or a question that provokes curiosity. Conflict. Introduce a challenge, struggle, or dilemma. Conflict creates tension and investment. Climax. The turning point where tension reaches its peak, demanding attention. Resolution. A satisfying conclusion that offers insight, learning, or transformation. Moral or insight. Leave the listener with a takeaway, a feeling or idea they can carry forward. Every element serves a purpose to pull the listener in, keep them engaged, and leave them transformed. Crafting characters that resonate. Characters are the heart of stories. Even short anecdotes are more memorable if they feature relatable individuals. Relatability. Show their struggles, fears, or desires. Listeners must see themselves reflected. Vulnerability. Imperfect characters feel real. Vulnerability invites empathy. Growth. Transformation or learning creates satisfaction and inspiration. When listeners connect with characters emotionally, your words gain a magnetic pull. They are no longer passive, they are invested. Painting vivid scenes. Details make stories come alive. Words should evoke senses, sight, sound, smell, touch, and even emotion. For example, weak, he walked into the room. Vivid, he stepped into the room, the faint scent of rain clinging to his coat, eyes scanning every corner with quiet tension. The second sentence creates imagery and emotion. It allows listeners to step inside the scene, feeling it rather than just hearing it. The power of emotion in stories. Emotion is the bridge between story and heart. Joy, fear, longing, surprise, each can engage listeners deeply. To harness emotion, identify the core feeling of your story. Amplify it with descriptive language and pacing. Mirror the listener's emotional journey, letting them experience highs and lows. Emotion is contagious. When your words carry it authentically, listeners absorb it naturally, leaving a lasting impact.
storytelling as a tool for influence. Stories can persuade subtly. Unlike direct arguments, which may trigger defensiveness, stories allow people to explore ideas in a safe, imaginative space. Illustrate a lesson. Instead of lecturing, demonstrate concepts through narrative. Show, don't tell. Reveal morals through actions, consequences, and decisions of characters. Invite reflection. Encourage listeners to draw parallels with their own lives. This approach makes your messages memorable and actionable, creating both emotional and intellectual resonance. Everyday storytelling. You don't need to be a novelist to tell compelling stories. Everyday interactions are full of opportunities. Sharing a personal experience at work or social gatherings, explaining a lesson or insight through a short anecdote, using historical or cultural examples to illustrate a point. Even small stories, when delivered with care and authenticity, can transform ordinary conversations into unforgettable experiences. Exercises to strengthen your storytelling. Observe daily life. Note moments with conflict, emotion, or humor. They are potential stories. Write short anecdotes. Focus on one conflict and resolution per story. Practice delivery. Emphasize pacing, pauses, and vocal emotion. Reflect on impact. Notice which stories capture attention and why. Through consistent practice, storytelling becomes intuitive, allowing every word you speak to become a journey for the listener. Storytelling is more than entertainment. It is the art of connecting minds and hearts. When words are woven into stories, they move beyond information. They become experiences that live in memory, emotion, and imagination. By mastering storytelling, you gain the ability to make every conversation compelling, every message memorable, and every word a tool to influence and inspire. The next chapter will reveal how to combine empathy, persuasion, and storytelling to create words that not only touch hearts, but leave a lasting, unforgettable imprint.
Chapter 8. The Subtle Influence. Guiding Minds Without Force. Have you ever felt the pull of someone's words so strongly that you didn't even realize you were being guided? What makes certain conversations feel effortless, even magnetic, leaving people ready to follow your ideas willingly? Subtle influence is the secret skill of those who win hearts without ever seeming forceful. It's the art of guiding thoughts, inspiring action, and shaping perceptions, all while making others feel free, respected, and understood. In this chapter, we uncover how words can become invisible currents that move hearts and minds seamlessly. Understanding subtle influence. Influence is often mistaken for dominance or persuasion through pressure. True influence, however, is almost invisible. It is the gentle, deliberate shaping of ideas that encourages others to choose willingly, not because they are coerced, but because they are inspired. Subtle influence relies on empathy, understanding emotions and perspectives deeply. Credibility, establishing trust and authority naturally. Framing, presenting ideas in ways that resonate with existing beliefs and desires. Narrative, wrapping messages in stories, metaphors, or experiences. The combination of these elements creates a magnetic pull. Listeners feel guided rather than pushed, aligned rather than compelled. The power of framing. How you present a message can determine how it is received. Framing is the art of choosing context, tone, and words to highlight opportunity rather than threat, possibility rather than problem. For example, weak, don't miss this chance to avoid failure. Strong, imagine stepping into an opportunity that could transform your journey. The second statement frames the same situation as a positive, inspiring vision. Subtle influence comes from shaping perception with intention, not pressure. Influence through questions. Questions, when used skillfully, are one of the most powerful tools for guiding thought.
They shift focus, encourage reflection, and allow the listener to arrive at conclusions themselves. Techniques include open-ended questions, invite exploration. What would happen if you approached this differently? Leading questions, suggest a perspective gently. Do you think this approach could make your work easier? Future-oriented questions, plant visions of possibility. How would it feel if this challenge turned into your biggest success? Questions make influence subtle, that guide without dictating, allowing people to feel ownership of their decisions. Storytelling as influence. Storytelling enhances subtle influence because stories bypass resistance. Listeners are immersed emotionally, often drawing conclusions themselves rather than feeling persuaded externally. To use stories for influence, mirror values, reflect the listener's beliefs or desires. Show consequences, let characters face challenges that reveal lessons naturally. Highlight transformation, demonstrate growth without overt instruction. Inspire reflection, encourage personal application subtly. Stories convert persuasion into experience. Listeners are moved emotionally and intellectually, often unaware of the influence that has taken place. The role of language patterns. Certain linguistic patterns increase influence subtly. Embedded commands, phrases hidden within sentences that guide behavior. Example, as you think about this, you might notice how easily clarity comes to mind. Positive framing, focus on potential, achievement, and desire rather than limitation. Repetition, key phrases repeated naturally create emphasis and retention. The key is subtlety. Overuse can feel manipulative, while skillful application strengthens connection and trust. Influence through emotion. Emotions are the gateway to the subconscious mind. Words that tap into curiosity, hope, excitement, or even mild tension create engagement and alignment. Consider these approaches. Anticipation. What if the next step you take completely changes the outcome? Relatability. Share moments of struggle, doubt, or learning. Empowerment. Highlight agency and capability, inspiring confidence. Emotion transforms influence from logic alone into compelling, memorable experience. Exercises for practicing subtle influence. Observe influential speakers. Notice how they guide without overt commands. Practice framing. Take ordinary messages and reframe them positively. Story-based practice. Convey advice or insight through a short narrative rather than direct instruction. Reflect on response. Notice which words inspire action versus which feel handheld. Gradually, subtle influence becomes intuitive, woven naturally into your speech, creating resonance without force. Subtle influence is the quiet art of guiding hearts and minds. It's not about control, coercion, or manipulation. It's about empathy, storytelling, and language used with intention. Those who master this skill leave others feeling understood, inspired, and motivated, all while maintaining trust and authenticity. Your words can become currents that move people gently, naturally, and powerfully. And as you move forward in this book, the next chapter will reveal the ultimate synthesis, combining empathy, persuasion, storytelling, and subtle influence to create words so magnetic that hearts can't help but respond.
Chapter 10. The Final Symphony. Mastering Words That Win Hearts. What if every word you spoke could leave a lasting mark, spark emotion, and draw people toward you effortlessly? What if the way you communicate could transform ordinary relationships into deep, meaningful connections? This chapter reveals the ultimate secret, how to combine empathy, persuasion, storytelling, subtle influence, and unforgettable language into a seamless art that wins hearts with every conversation. The Orchestra of Communication. Think of communication as a symphony.
Each element,
Chapter 9.
empathy, persuasion,
Words that stick,
storytelling,
creating
subtle influence,
unforgettable
and memorable
impressions.
words is like an instrument.
Why do some words
Alone,
echo in
each
your mind
produces
long
beautiful
after a
notes.
conversation
Together,
ends,
they
while
create
others
harmony
vanish
that resonates
like smoke in the
deeply
wind?
within the listener's
What
heart.
makes certain sentences
Empathy,
unforgettable,
the strings,
embedding
creating
themselves
emotional
in memory
depth
and
and
emotion?
connection.
The
Persuasion,
secret to winning
the
hearts
brass,
is not just
adding
speaking
clarity,
well,
strength,
it's
and
making
direction.
every word count,
Storytelling,
leaving
the
impressions that
woodwinds,
linger,
weaving narrative
resonate,
and
and
imagery.
inspire.
Subtle
In this
influence,
chapter, we
the
dive into
percussion,
the art of
guiding
crafting
rhythm
language
and
that
momentum.
people remember,
Memorable
repeat,
words,
and carry
the
with
melody
them long after
echoing
you speak.
long after the symphony
The
ends.
psychology of memorable
Mastery
words
comes from knowing
Memory
how to
is
blend these
selective.
elements
Humans are
naturally,
naturally
so your
drawn
words
to
become
novelty,
an experience
emotion, and
rather than
clarity.
mere sentences.
Words that combine these
Aligning
elements create
intention
neural
and
hooks that
authenticity.
lodge firmly in
The
the
most
mind.
powerful
3
communication
key
stems from
principles make words
authenticity.
unforgettable.
Every word must
Emotion.
reflect
People
genuine
remember
intent,
how they felt
aligned
more
with
than
your
what they heard.
values and respect
Emotional
for the
resonance
listener.
is critical.
Without authenticity,
Simplicity,
even the most
clear,
artful
concise
techniques
language
fall
sticks
flat,
more
leaving an
effectively
empty
than
impression.
long, convoluted
Authenticity
explanations.
manifests
Imagery,
in speaking from
words
experience,
that create
not
mental
pretense,
pictures, are easier
showing
to recall and
vulnerability
share.
where appropriate.
When these elements
Acknowledging
align,
emotions
your language
honestly,
transcends
ensuring
ordinary
persuasion
communication.
is rooted
It
in
becomes an
empathy,
experience,
not manipulation.
a moment people
When
relive
intention and
internally.
authenticity align,
Crafting
your words
phrases
carry
that
a
resonate.
magnetic power that
Unforgettable
naturally
words are
draws
carefully
people in.
constructed. They
The
have
flow
rhythm,
of
cadence,
influence.
and balance,
Master
making them
communicators
pleasing to
create
both
a
mind
seamless
and ear.
flow in
Examples
conversation.
include
Listen
actions
deeply,
speak louder
tune
than
into
words.
emotions
What
and
we say
unspoken
becomes
cues.
who we are.
Respond
Small
with empathy,
words,
show
big
understanding and validation.
Notice the simplicity,
Tell stories,
the rhythm,
illustrate
and the emotional
points
weight.
with narrative
Such
and imagery.
phrases are not accidental.
Guide subtly.
They are crafted
Use
with
questions
intention,
and framing to
honed for
guide
maximum
discussion
resonance.
naturally. Anchor
The
with
role of
memorable
storytelling
words.
in
Leave
memory.
phrases that linger
Stories
and
are the
inspire
natural
action.
container for
This
unforgettable
flow
words.
turns
They allow
dialogue
listeners
into an
to
immersive
experience
experience,
concepts
making
emotionally,
each interaction
creating
meaningful,
vivid mental
persuasive,
imprints.
and
To make
unforgettable.
stories stick,
The
start
emotional
strong,
architecture
open with a
of
hook
words.
that captivates
Winning
attention
hearts
immediately.
requires building
Build
emotional
tension,
bridges.
keep the listener
Each
engaged
word should
with
be
conflict
chosen to
or suspense,
resonate, connect,
deliver a
and
clear
inspire.
insight.
Curiosity,
Ensure the message is
spark
simple,
interest and
actionable,
wonder,
and emotionally
relatability,
charged.
create a sense
End
of
with a
shared
punch.
experience,
Conclude
hope
with a phrase
and
or
empowerment,
sentence that
offer
resonates,
solutions
ready
and
to be
possibilities,
remembered and repeated.
reflection,
Stories
encourage
transform
introspection
ordinary
and personal
sentences
growth.
into memorable
The architecture
moments,
of
giving your
emotion
words
ensures that your
permanence in the
words do
minds of
more
others.
than inform. They
Using
transform
repetition
perception
strategically.
and deepen connection.
Repetition enhances
Storytelling
retention,
as the
but
glue.
subtlety is key.
Stories are the
when
glue
done
that
naturally,
binds all
repetition
elements
emphasizes
together.
key
They
ideas
allow your
without
audience
feeling
to
forced.
experience empathy,
Techniques include
absorb persuasion,
thematic repetition,
feel subtle
reinforce
influence,
the same
and remember
idea through
key
multiple
points
sentences
all at
or
once.
examples.
To maximize
Rhythmic repetition,
impact, start
use
with
cadence
emotion
and phrasing
draw
to make
listeners
sentences
in
stick.
immediately. Build
Callbacks
tension,
refer to
keep
earlier
attention
points to
focused,
strengthen memory.
deliver insight,
Repetition
make the
ensures
moral
that
or
your
lesson
core message
clear
is
and
embedded
relatable.
firmly in the
Close
listener's
with
mind.
resonance, and
Emotional
with a phrase or
hooks that
image
stick.
that lingers in the mind.
Emotion is
When
memory's
used
catalyst.
skillfully,
Words
storytelling
tied to
ensures
intense,
your
relatable
words are
feelings
not only
are more
heard,
likely
but
to be
felt
remembered.
and remembered.
Curiosity.
Refining
Have you
your
ever wondered
voice.
why some moments
Voice
change
is the
your
invisible
life forever?
instrument of your symphony.
Inspiration.
Tone,
Imagine a day
pacing,
when
and
your
rhythm
words
bring
leave a mark
words to
on
life.
everyone you meet.
Tone,
Surprise.
warmth, confidence,
What if the
and
secret to
authenticity,
influence wasn't what you
pacing,
thought?
strategic pauses
These
for
hooks
emphasis and
activate the
reflection,
brain's emotional
rhythm,
circuits,
varied
creating
sentence
lasting
lengths to
impressions that
maintain
linger
engagement,
long after the conversation
inflection,
ends.
highlight key
The
points
power
naturally.
of metaphors and
your
analogies.
voice is as important as your
Metaphors
words.
transform
It carries
abstract
emotion,
concepts
reinforces
into tangible,
meaning, and
relatable
creates an
experiences.
immersive experience.
Analogies create
Exercises
connections that
for
simplify
mastery.
understanding
Blend
while
elements.
amplifying memory.
Practice speaking
For
with
example,
empathy,
instead of
persuasion,
saying communication
storytelling,
is important,
subtle influence,
you might say
and memorable
words
phrases
are the
in a
threads
single
that weave
conversation.
the fabric of
Record
relationships.
and reflect.
The imagery
Notice
makes the
which
concept
parts resonate
concrete
and where
memorable,
improvements
and
are
emotionally
needed.
engaging.
Story crafting.
People recall
Develop
images
stories
far more
that
readily
illustrate
than
key
abstract
messages
ideas.
with emotional impact.
Exercises
Test
for
subtle
making
influence.
words stick.
Use questions
Craft
and framing
memorable
to
phrases.
guide discussion
Take
naturally.
a key idea and
Through
distill it
consistent
into a short,
practice,
rhythmic,
mastery of words
emotionally
becomes becomes
charged
second nature,
sentence.
and every
Use
conversation
imagery.
becomes an
Practice
opportunity
describing
to leave
ideas
hearts
using
won,
visual,
minds
auditory,
inspired,
or emotional
and
imagery.
connections deepened.
Test stories.
And now, as this
Share
journey
short
draws
stories
to a
and
close,
ask listeners
you
what
hold
they
the
remember.
secret,
Note
the
which
art
words
of speaking
or phrases
in a way
resonate.
that captures attention,
Refine through
inspires
repetition.
loyalty,
Repeat
and
key
resonates
points
long
with
after
subtle
the words are
variations to
spoken.
enhance retention.
The power is yours,
Through
and the
consistent
next
practice,
step is
your
up to
words
you.
will not just be
Practice,
heard, they will be
refine,
remembered,
and wield your
quoted,
words with
and
intention,
cherished.
integrity,
Words
and
that
heart.
stick are the bridge
Remember,
between
words
fleeting
are not just
conversation
tools,
and
they
lasting
are the
impact.
keys to
They are
connection,
carefully
the
chosen,
bridges to
emotionally
understanding,
resonant,
and the sparks
crafted
that
to
ignite
leave an
human
imprint
hearts.
on memory.
Speak with
When
awareness,
mastered, this
craft
skill
with
transforms
care, and
ordinary
watch as your
interactions
language
into
transforms
unforgettable
every
experiences,
interaction into
allowing
a
you to
lasting
win hearts
impact.
effortlessly.
You now have the roadmap
The next
to becoming
chapter will reveal
unforgettable,
the ultimate
persuasive,
synthesis,
and
combining
profoundly
empathy,
connected.
persuasion,
Go forth
storytelling,
and let your words
subtle
leave the
influence,
world
and
changed,
unforgettable
one
language
heart at
to
a
create a
time.
communication style that commands attention, inspires loyalty, and leaves every listener longing for more.